that came before them. And I think a big part of what we do in esports is we bring entertainment to this generation, and they own it, and it is theirs. And frankly, few others understand it.
Ooh, I love that.
I can tell when somebody is not a target of our fandom when they say, people play video games and get paid. And it's like, okay, you don't get it. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. No disrespect, but you're not our target market. Yeah. So we started up in 2018. We're basically in all of the major esports around the world, and we consider 4 esports being the main esports that have established themselves. And I would say that's Call of Duty, League of Legends, Valorant, and Counter-Strike. We've been getting a little flack, I think, from our community. I see quite a bit of Spanish on the chat over there because already. We've announced we're doing a bit of a pause in Counter-Strike to rethink our strategy. Counter-Strike is a fantastic game, but it's a difficult one to really enter in a big way. It's a very expensive, very complicated ecosystem, let's say. And so we're going to take a pause. We're going to rethink it and figure out what we're going to do over there. It is a core priority for us. But, here with respect to Blacklyte, our partnership with Toronto Ultra, which is the Call of Duty League. And I think, for Europe, I would say, a lot of people would call Counter-Strike as the main esport. I think in North America, without a doubt, in my mind, it's Call of Duty. It's a preeminently North American game. It obviously has a lot of interest in Europe, but it's city-based, North American teams, mostly North American players. It's a console-based game with a controller. It is the only game of its type. We're actually bringing it to Europe with the Call of Duty Major at the end of this month. Super Bowl weekend, actually, in Europe with Call of Duty Major. We basically try to focus on the big sports, try to build fandom, and then try to partner with people like Alex who we can introduce to our fans.
Amazing. All right. The way that we're going to do this, nice, casual, fun. I'll pop up the first question. Organically, you can answer and ask. The first question is, in esports, how do you balance innovation and sustainable growth?
Wow. Okay, so what kind of innovation and sustainable growth?
Those two things never really work that well together.
Really?
Right? Well, here's the thing, right? You can spend a lot of money innovating. Yeah. You're spending a lot of money innovating, right?
Yeah.
But can that be sustainable to the business economy of your company, right? And that's the important balance that you've always got to play out, right? If we could, we would revolutionize the way that we run broadcasts around the world. Could you imagine what you could do with a bunch of AI within that broadcast? But that's going to cost quite a lot of cash to do in the first foreseeable time. So then you're going to think about how you do it step by step, right? And, when you do shows and you do some crazy stuff with formats and, you could spend so much money on LED. Look at this show we're at here today. They're spending so much money on everything, right?
Yeah,
but if you put a bunch of LED in an arena, sound, lighting, get the audience engaged with a bunch of tech, it can cost you a lot of money, but is that really sustainable? So you've got to always remember that sustainability is there. Esports has come through a period of time which has been tough. We're all out of that now, I think. Adam, I hope you'd agree. And I think now we're into a place where we can do some really clever stuff going forward.
That's brilliant. So it seems like you've tackled the innovation side of things in terms of how careful you have to be with it. But before I continue, Adam, do you have a response to that?
I agree 100%. Look, when I see things about about VR or all of these kind of new technologies as being innovation, I somewhat roll my eyes. I think it's usually people that are not knowledgeable about our fans and what they're looking for, trying to create a slice for themselves. And I think our business is pretty simple. You get the best players in the world playing the biggest video games in front of live audiences, and the magic happens there. And so in terms of innovation, what you want to do is you want to make that the best experience it can be, okay? The best live events, the best games, the best players. And if you can do that consistently, you're going to have, that's the innovation that you need, and you're going to have the sustainability that you need as well, because people will show up and watch and spend their money.
Because don't forget, there's this age-old thing, right? called storytelling.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You don't need to spend a shit ton of money on LED, on formats, on VR, on AR
Yep.
to tell a really cool story. To find someone who has an interesting background, a player that's come from, somewhere, off the beaten track, but has then made rags to riches stories. I think that is really cool, and that's what makes global sport. We're in global sport. We're in sports and entertainment and storytelling, and I don't know if we're finally totally there yet. Like, I watch our stuff and I'm like, actually, this is great, but we could do even more around that storytelling.
Yeah.
We could get into the weeds on these players more. We could get under the skin of it more. And by the way, the fans want that. That's what they want. They want to know because these guys are their heroes.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they want to understand that?
Yeah. So even though both of you said a couple of things about innovation, all I heard come out of your mouths was innovation. And what do I mean? You both had to bespoke methods of how you innovated for sustainability, albeit slowly, but you have a formula for how you get to fans that you will replicate and slowly innovate on as well. I didn't necessarily mean technological. And the way that you structured that was brilliant in response in terms of, wait, it has to be a more targeted approach to community and incrementally adding new things. Because as you mentioned with AI, once we start getting into using AI to get closer, and we were talking about this earlier, how long are they camping? How long are they staying here? What happens when they did that in the last game? Go ahead, Alex, talk about that.
Exactly. Like, by using analysis and AI tools, you can, optimize the whole user experiences or the fan experiences. That's part of the innovation that can be applied to live shows very easily by showing them which type of lighting. Like, we're working with UHN on lighting effects on human bodies, right? Those are the things that can incorporate into this too. By what seating, seeing what position of the game, perceiving what type of lighting, and then you can get the emotion, the feedback from them. Then you know how to tune for the next show.
Yes.
Like, hosting the show is great, having the team is great, having the esport is great, but we also have seen shows or games that have all that, but still failed. So there has to be little formulas, little tweaks that make the whole thing perfect.
The other thing you both spoke about is the artistry of storytelling and how important it is connecting. Adam, you had mentioned, listen, man, you know when somebody doesn't play or doesn't know, and you probably have to deal with it every day.
Every day.
So,
with anybody that is close to my age. Yeah.
Right? There's an innovative strategy and artistry to being able to explain to somebody what it is you're doing and are trying to do.
Yeah. It's not hard. It's not hard to explain. It's just, for people that are not, and it's not just older people, it's anybody that's not, you could be a gamer and not be into esports. And, so there's different markets over there. But look, there is always going to be a market and interest and excitement around getting best players of anything, okay, in a structured thing. And the biggest form of entertainment for today's generation of fans is video games, right? And the biggest video games in the world, in the esports world, are basically free to play, except for Call of Duty, okay? And so you need the publishers, okay, to want to support it, and the publishers, it really begins with them. The level of support they put into building an esports ecosystem is critical to the industry. So we begin with the publisher. When they provide support like Riot does, for example, in Valorant, we see that Valorant has become one of the biggest games in the world primarily through esports. That is that's an innovation right there, okay? Like,
it just clicked. Innovation.
That's they spend, as far as I can tell, most of their marketing on esports, okay, across the world, teams in every country. And that drives engagement, that drives in-game purchases for them, that drives their revenue, and that drives the ecosystem. And so I think, when we're looking at explaining it, it's basically sports in video games, and I think people kind of get that. But again, I think both of us, in terms of where we're coming at it, we really need the publishers to buy in. And frankly, when we're trying to decide which games to be involved in, it starts with the publisher. The publisher has to have buy-in, and if they don't have buy-in, it's hard for us to support. If they don't support the game, it's hard for me to support the game. Right?
So it sounds like you're talking about secondary avenue of pushing forward. You can have a successful game, but a publisher that doesn't want to support the game. And then that's not necessarily a good business venture because you'd have to do it all on your own. And they could, as we say, change the shape of the football at any moment so that things are different.
You've got different levels of support, right?
Yeah.
The definition of support can be done differently, right? So if you take like the world's biggest publishers, some of those ecosystems, we like to call them ecosystems, right? Like Valve is a very open ecosystem,
Yeah,
right?
Valve is
and so
interesting.
they support in an open way by allowing people to have a license, to be able to operate tournaments, for teams to be able to play, for sponsors to be able to engage. Some other ecosystems are much more closed, and they prefer to operate them, publishers prefer to operate them themselves within their own confines of their own company in some respects, but outsourcing it in other respects. So it really depends on what that level of support is. But ultimately, you know, Adam's right? We want the publishers to lean in. They have to believe that the esports output is really valuable. And then all of the economy that sits alongside that exists. You know, your business wouldn't exist without the output associated. It's
Exactly.
really important for consumers to be able to understand the products that are associated with those games, what they can buy, what they can purchase, etc. And I think that is really important to understand, and it's often misunderstood, by the way, right? And so I think a lot of what we do as businesses is spend time with like publishers to try and persuade them, well, actually, why don't we do output here? Like, where's your geographical mix? Where are people playing your games? Like, how can we help support you more, right? And that's really critical.
So it sounds like there's a learning on the corporate side, but also on the publisher side in terms of how this is all coming together.
It makes the game real. Esports makes the game real.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've got players that are like the players of the game, that each have unique stories. When you talk about storytelling, we find that the bond between our players and our fans is almost personal. Like these guys are not like movie star type people, who are out there in Hollywood. These are people that came from the towns and the villages and the basements that they played as well. And they're, when they become stars, the audience kind of engages with them. And I think you're right in terms of, like, one of our players on Ultra is Toby. He goes under Kleenex. We should probably do a better job of telling his story, because Kleenex is Danish, and I've always asked him. I think he's the only Danish player in Call of Duty. He's one of the best players in Call of Duty, which isn't surprising to anybody that knows, the significance of Denmark to esports. But I've often talked to him and said, like, how does a kid from Denmark, pick up a controller and not, Counter-Strike or League of Legends, and then on top of that become one of the best players in the world? And he's got an interesting story there as well. And I think those are the kinds of stories that I think we can kind of lean into. But this is real, and the attachments are real, and it is actionable. People take action when you can basically ask them to support you as an organization or as a league or as an event. And I think when done well, it's probably the most personal form of entertainment. Okay, like the most closest to the audience.
So
right?
I did some work looking into Riot and League of Legends, specifically installation processes. And there was this thinking behind a player being able to watch a viewer to watch a particular play in League of Legends, and then in less than 3 minutes, have the program installed on their machine enough to try and recreate that play. So it goes even built into the fabric of the model of how close to the players fans can be. Kicking a football through a goalpost is not the same thing as installing League and trying out.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you both in terms of that storytelling. What are some of the ways you're excited about, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this later, galvanizing those stories in ways that become more personal for fans?
You're talking about learning and development, right, in that instance. I think that's a really interesting example, right? And I mean, I wasn't aware of that, right? But like ultimately, and actually, I don't think enough of our time is spent helping support like the education side of esports and trying to support these kids coming through and showcasing how important gaming is to their lives, right? It's part and parcel of day-to-day life. And actually, sadly, we're still in a world where stigmas are associated with being a gamer, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of our work is associated with spending time with governments, with individuals, with industries, explaining why gaming is important and how it can be safe, right? And I think if we can take that lesson that you've got there and say, well, actually, there's some real power that comes out of watching, learning, being able to play off the back of it, that's hugely valuable. But we're nowhere near it, I don't think.
I agree. The example I have there is I teach a game design class to 854 students in a theater. 11 disciplines across the university, including sports broadcasting students, computer scientists, nursing students, criminology students. And I take note of all the different disciplines and change my curriculum to explain to each demographic of how they see themselves within these ecosystems. My institution didn't understand what I was trying to do until 864 students signed up for a non-mandatory class. And they came into this theater and we're like, whoa, we've got something here. And I was like, but it's the same conversation you were saying. Like, man, how many times do I got to explain this? Like, yo, this is what happened. So I agree with you, but it's tough. It's tough. Like, how many times when people find out what is researched in this field and how, like, we were talking about chemistry and dopaminergic pathways. This is the idea that King at the time wrote an algorithm with a behavioral scientist and a chemist and a biologist and a computer scientist so that 1 in every 1,000 people would spend $1 in Candy Crush. And as a result of that, through trial and testing, I think King at the time was making roughly $68 million a year. And then Activision Blizzard bought King, and then Microsoft came and swallowed them all up. That wasn't gamer tech. That was actual, like, the business folk were there saying, you know what, if we can get 1 in every 1,000 people out of this database, we'll show you via numbers. When we get to that level in your ecosystem where you're sending me numbers to be like, yo, we need graduates for, you know what I mean?
From a recruitment perspective, it's key, right?
Yeah.
Like you're talking about broadcast and production talent. You know, ultimately, like we post jobs, right? And then there are hundreds and hundreds of applications. But then we get into like how you screen and where they sit and all the rest of it. But fundamentally, when we travel around the world, like, and we do shows in like different arenas all around the world, and I always say the same thing. I'm like, I don't want to travel my like Danish cohort, right? Because we're a Danish business, right? And there's a whole bunch of people who are amazing. We're amazing operators and brilliant broadcasters. But like, I want to be in Boston. Someone asked a question about Boston. I want to be in Boston, hire local people from Boston. I want to be in Toronto, hire local people from Toronto. Like, there's talent in all of these places.
Yep.
But you know what? We're just not exposed to it. And then I feel like maybe you tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like the university scene is like disconnected from the professional scene of like gaming, right?
So. I have some numbers for that.
Okay, tell me more. This was not planned, right?
That was fine. This is not planned.
Okay, go for it.
This is what a lot of my work focuses on. So in Canada, the average age of a full-time faculty member is 51 years of age. This is typically outside of the demographic of folks who spend the most money on video games, that's our demographic, and folks who have the most time to play video games, which is the student population. How is it probable that curriculum is going to come up for people to believe in a game design course, cross-discipline, if folks don't even play video games, and they're getting anecdotes from parents who are doing what's called digital parenting, giving their kids as a way of just leave me alone, right? It always boils down to education. When people see my numbers, and I have to grab those analytics myself to be like, no, this is how important it is, I think there's a level of education that needs to happen, because when I give that statistic, I'm waiting for people to say, well, I'm above 51, and it never happens. I'm hoping, because then when they get at me, I'll be like, all right, let's mobilize and let's do something, right? So I think that once we see more and realize that and I said this in my TED Talk, there's not a single job, trade, or discipline that doesn't in some way connect to and through video games and esports.
Yeah.
Not a single one. And the example we have in Toronto is there's like a law firm named Spark Law that they focus on esports and video game IP law. If we had a law program that said, oh, by the way, you can specialize in this, are you joking me? What do you think's going to happen in enrollment when 61% of Canadians play video games? Go ahead.
First of all, I think Toronto Metropolitan University is kind of leading the pack in this. And actually, I know them well. I know the faculty there, the creative school. I think there is a big opportunity for the university to establish a leadership role in the kind of creator academy, the creator kind of world, right? And I think there's a desire there for them to move into it. This is a university that has historically trained, journalists, radio personalities, and film. Like, if you're in film in Canada or even in the U.S., you probably went to TMU or its predecessor. So, but those industries are fading, right? We see for example, the election in the U.S. from a while before, it wasn't the news media, it was the podcasters and the influencers that really had, and that transition is happening. And I've been saying this about, sports versus esports and just the transition happening in the economy. What we see in the traditional world is that it's getting older. It's getting older. The demographics are kind of growing, to late 40s, early 50s. The average viewer for golf, for example, is in the 60s now, okay? They're aging out, okay? And young people are consuming things differently, different types of media, okay? They've got different relationships. They've got the personal relationships with esports players, but they've also got very close personal relationships with influencers. And one of the things that we've done over the last year is we've developed a very close cohort of influencers, beginning with Ibai Llanos, who happens to be the biggest in the world, but plus a whole bunch of others that we're involved with in Europe and in North America as well. And it is incredible how close these relationships are between these people and the fans, okay? And then the connection that they provide to our teams, and it becomes a community or a family, right? And how do you become a creator? How do you become, you go to your basement and you get in trouble from your parents, and there's no structured way of doing it. Can you spend all of your time? And there's is there a program where you can basically say, hey, this is how you develop and grow and manage and run a podcast, for example, okay? And you need script writers and you need planners.
I think you've got one, haven't you? At the front of the show, you said that you have.
But you guys are starting that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, by and large, they're not at the point where most people are looking at that from kind of a trainable kind of perspective, not at the university.
We're saying the same thing.
They're training them how to do radio still, right? And not podcasts, right?
I agree with you.
Nobody's listening to the radio.
Well, we need you to come in and talk to them because they're not listening to me. So
stay tuned.
I know. I'm here. I'm here for it. What I'm excited about is everything you highlighted is what I feel is the need for the next generation of education in general.
Yeah, I agree.
If the kids are all playing games and watching influencers, and why don't we use that as a conduit to train them on those skills? When I say to a student, I can help you jump from 0 to 50,000 subscribers, and I tell them about Sophia Beltran.
Yeah.
She started a podcast and started paying her tuition.
Yeah.
And there's a publication about it. Students are like, no, this guy's not joking around. They should be publicizing that more to be like, yo, these skills lead to you making money while you're in school.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a student in that class, the first cohort, we taught it alongside Jeffrey LaChapelle. A student showed up, this is when we did it completely online. He unmutes his mic and says, sir, I just want to tell you both that I showed up in my executive meeting with what you taught me in OBS, and now I'm being promoted to train the rest of the staff to look as good at, this is what I'm talking about.
And it's not just that, it's search engine optimization.
Yep.
Like all of the stuff
Yes.
and that stuff, you need to transition the programs from legacy media to these new, and this, I'm not sure if it's bigger than maybe it is bigger already, right? But if it's not bigger already, it will be bigger. And universities and programs and organizations like us want people that are ready for the future of entertainment, not for the past.
I'll give you an example.
And part of it is the people running these programs are people that don't get it. So not all of them, but some of them.
I'll give you one of the things that I was working on in the background. If you had a resume from a student who in their first, second, and third year had to start broadcasting themselves and collect data and statistics, watch how long, based on the different things they did, and presented that as part of their application. I started off with 0 subscribers, and I went here, and this is how I did.
Yeah, be powerful, yep.
Right?
Yep.
Hire him.
I know that, you know that.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? How do you explain that to the current infrastructure?
I think for them to be able to build that kind of a channel, let's say, it requires so much time that it may be incompatible with traditional schooling, right? What you find is that you need, if you're going to be a creator and you're going to be on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, you have to do it for many hours with very few people watching.
Correct.
Okay? And then, of course, if you're just a young person who is doing it on their own, you don't have script writers, you don't have technology people, you're just there streaming every day, and it takes up so much time, and probably you get so much flack from your parents and your family, right? Because it's not seen. It's seen as a waste of your time and your life, as opposed to a career
But I just don't feel like we have access to these people.
Yeah.
That's like my worry. Like I look at our organization, like we have 150 staff, like full-time, and then a whole bunch of freelancers that operate around the world, right? The average age of our company is probably, I think it's about 29,
Yeah.
right? But then I'm like looking at the cohort, which is say 20 to 24,
Yeah.
and it's very small in percentage terms. And I'd love us to be bringing through all of that
Yeah.
talent. But you know what? I just don't know where to source them, right?
Yes.
And also it's a question of geography, right? How do I source them in Denmark? How do I source them in the UK? How do I source them in Berlin? What do we do out of America? I don't know the answer to that. And then you get all these CVs.
Yeah.
And how do you let that individual showcase their skill, their guile, their tenacity in a traditional way? You were talking about using AI or something for how you
Yeah.
submit your CVs. How do you let them showcase that through their application process when the application processes are so old-fashioned?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have answers for that.
There you
You
go.
have a simple
And
field.
thank God we're here.
A simple field that says
Attach
please,
your social media
a
accounts.
link, exactly.
Yeah, but then you gotta watch all. Then you gotta have someone watching.
HR, that's HR's job. That's what we do actually for a lot of the
People and culture, we like to call it. my friend.
Okay. Okay.
In case some of my guys
Yeah,
are watching.
exactly. So actually, for our departments, a lot of the marketing position, a lot of operation and content groups, it's required
Yeah.
that you attach your social media accounts. Because we found that we had a couple guys who had a social media account. It's just much easier. They understand the algorithm, even though they don't know how to hit, let's say, 1 million followers. At least they know what it is. What is the algorithm? Like how long you have to stream? What's going on? What type of content go viral? They need to understand this before they can create. Like a traditional graphic designer, traditional copywriter, or film, they're not able to play in the new media world right now.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Alex. So like when we're looking at people, and we've developed a lot of great people in terms of all of our locations.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, and maybe it's changing a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You can either go for people that understand like the creator economy and the stuff that you're talking about,
Yep.
or people that understand the business side.
Yep.
Okay. And there's not enough overlap right now.
Exactly.
And so what we find is that, you can go, and in esports companies, you probably find some companies have leaned more in one direction or the other direction,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But it's really hard because the cultures are still different, even if
Yep.
they're the same age,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And sometimes, our best people don't watch esports.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're not coming from the esports world. They're very good at what they do, and they can understand it, but that's just not their world,
Yep.
right? And then other people, live it and are passionate and want to come, but they haven't developed the skills that we can use,
Yep.
right? And so do you have that trade-off? Is that a challenge that you see?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with it?
So basically, right now we found, because we experienced the rapid growth from like 17 people to 70 people,
Yeah.
and then a cut down from 70 to 50, and then regrowth. We went through a lot of those because
Yeah.
new company, a lot of new things coming up, direction-wise, like it's always changing. We found that right now it's very hard for us to hire anyone who's in completely unrelated fields. You have to be within the fields. But when I say within the fields,
Yeah.
it's entertainments.
Yeah.
So like you guys often work with sports guys.
Yeah.
Same with Robbie, right?
Yeah.
You had a lot of people from sports industry, from music industry.
Yeah.
Similar things with us. But when you talk about the difference between the people who have the business mind, the people who have the content mind, that's why we see them as 3 different positions.
Yeah.
So you have the management level and the direction levels who knows what you want to get, but those people cannot be micromanaging because the content guys are the young people who don't like micromanaging.
No, they don't. Yeah.
So you need a different type of manager.
Yeah.
So you have the directional, now you have the now you have the content team to constantly output the ideas,
Yeah.
but that have to be filtered out by the managers. They know, okay, what type that
Yeah.
we can use. And then you have the executions. The guy who's really good at grinding it, who's really good at AE, who's really good at graphic design, who's really
Yeah.
good at marketing strategy, omni-channel. But they have to have the content group to constantly feeding them new ideas.
Yes.
That's the only way. Like, if you find, I always say in my company, I always say, okay, the HRs, the people of culture. If you guys can find 10 of me,
Yeah.
I can cut off my staff in half. Because I know the whole line of what to do.
Yeah.
Because if you
Yeah.
think about the business logic, it's actually very easy. Like,
Yeah.
it goes from the traffic explosion, the happening of the traffic, and then the expansion of the traffic, and then the catching of the traffic, the endorsement of the traffic, then the conversion of the traffic. It's actually relatively easy.
Yeah, it is.
You just plug in whatever project or events that you want to do, and then plug in the audience that you have, and then fill in the blocks. But the top-down thinking is so easy, so obvious in the sense that nobody really knows about it. Nobody really thinks about it. Everybody just, I get a job, okay, I gotta sell this water bottle. Okay, now what is the price range? What is the marketing strategy? They don't have that thinking.
Yeah.
But then, as a lot of friends always reminding, they're like, okay, if everyone had that mindset, they would have opened their own business.
Right?
They wouldn't be working for you.
And this is where we get back to what you're
Rob, you
saying.
already know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, right? This idea that really what we're receiving right now, there's two analogies here. One is Video Games Live. Are you familiar with Video Games Live?
Yeah.
This is Tommy Tallarico's business where he flies around the world and plays video game music with concerts and concertos. Every time he goes to a new city, he finds the talent to play in that city.
Nice.
That didn't happen right away. Video game music, I don't play video game music, but he had to go for a while in order that happen. Second thing I wanted to say, the talent that you all are receiving are the hungriest people.
Yeah.
Until we have hunger described infrastructurally to institutions, you're only always going to get the people that want to lift the weights the most.
Yep.
And they don't really need anything other than, yo, go do the thing.
Yeah,
you know what we're
exactly.
doing, right?
Yep.
If we're going to expand, we need to be able to distill, to explain to everybody, listen, this is how many reps need to be done in order for you to be able to show something. And I want to see your numbers. I don't really want to watch your YouTube video. I want you to tell me your analytics. I need you to understand how you gather data and analytics for yourself, because you're going to need to do that for us.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing where I'm saying it's not necessarily about hours, but it is about like culture and understanding, but tangible results, because that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, I'm. Most of our people are younger people, right, in their 20s, maybe early 30s, right?
Yeah.
I generally don't hold somebody's age against them if they don't hold my age against me. And look, you can be talented and skilled at any age, really, depending on how much effort, and how much work you want to put in.
Yep.
And I think what we find is that there are people that are passionate but don't have much more than that, and there are people that are so that mix is very important.
Yes.
The other kind of and how you find that mix, and I agree with you, Alex. Like, there's a lot of things that I think are obvious that we should just be doing
Exactly.
that don't get done, and it is always on the top of my mind that I need to manage this generation different than I was managed. Okay, because again, you have to be supportive, you have to be a mentor, you have to be a teacher to younger people. That's part of my role, is to train them.
But you can't be nagging at the same time.
And sometimes it's hard for you to balance, the complaints of micromanaging versus not providing enough support.
Yes.
And that's part of the job, I think. And I know you've got probably some challenges on that side too.
Yeah,
right?
similar.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider setting up some kind of education wing for your own companies?
That's something that we're actually talking with TMU.
I think it would be great. I mean, we've spoken so many to the UK government, the Danish government, because those are where our two hubs are, right? And I'd love to be getting a cohort, and I've said we'll provide hey, let's have 3 interns a year, let's have 3 full-time employments a year. So we've got a couple of individuals. There's a university in the UK, I think it's called Stafford. We've hired from that particular university. It's been quite successful. But then you get into the mix of are they here because they're like you said before, the passion-based play versus actually this is a business. We're going to run a business. And so it's because people want to work in esports because they absolutely love gaming and like playing, and I get that, right? So you've got to try to play those off against, but that's our responsibility as educators. We have to educate our staff. We have to grow them, and that's the other thing, right? You've got to get them in. You've got to find the pipe, right? The pipe doesn't exist, in my opinion, right?
Agreed.
So we've got to get the pipe working. And then when we get them in, we've got to train them. And I don't think, and you look at the biggest companies in the world, and you look at the Googles and the Facebooks and all the others, right? They have these really robust training programs, and they're spending so much money on L&D, right? Learning and development. And we're just not in the ballpark for that because the financial responsibilities of our business mean that we can't spend as much on L&D. That is a shame, and I think that is important to us because they are just craving for more, and that is really important.
What do you think of esports programs?
That's what we were talking with.
I've got my own thoughts.
Chris.
Okay, Wait, I kind of want to hear your thoughts
Yeah,
first
you
because
go first,
I have a
you
go first.
suggestion
Yeah,
that you might enjoy based on
I'm
what you
willing
said
to change
before.
my mind, but
Yeah.
my advice to kids, don't sign up for an esports program. Look, esports, it's a niche, okay?
Yeah.
And the skills that you need are not necessarily specific to esports, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
What you want to
Yes.
bring to esports is your passion for video games, understand the ecosystem, you know, who the influence, like all of that knowledge, that's what you bring and that can't be taught,
Yes.
okay?
Brilliant.
And what you want to do is you want to develop these skills that we're talking about, okay, and then combine them with the passion, and then the problem is there's probably more demand than there is jobs available. So every
Yes.
time we put a posting, we get, you know, many,
Yep.
many more times,
Yep.
which means that we can be selective. And so if you want to make yourself kind of go up to the top of the list, then show that you know the organization, show that you know us, that you care about us,
Yep.
right? That you have knowledge and that you've brought the skills, you know, whether you've learned them in a traditional, you know, kind of educational side,
Yep.
which we definitely value, or if you've built something yourself. Look, there's one guy, and I'm not sure if I want to mention his name. It's been driving me crazy, you know, for years now in the Overwatch space because,
Okay.
as you guys know, we were one of the first teams in Overwatch.
Yeah.
Toronto Defiant, we had a great year. We decided to pause Overwatch as well for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that drove me kind of just crazy is there's this guy who's Canadian. He used to come to our games, okay, part of our community, and he started up a YouTube channel. And of course, our Toronto Defiant teams have YouTube channels as well.
Yeah.
And we've got the professional players, we've
Yeah.
got sponsors, and we've got events, and we go to championships, okay? And this kid, I assume he's a kid. I've seen him on YouTube. He seems kind of young, so no offense if you're a kid and I'm calling you that. But he started his channel and he had no viewers.
Yeah.
Okay, it was focused at first on Toronto Defiant exclusively.
Yeah.
Okay, and then over time, his channel became bigger than our channel, right? And now I take a look at his channel, and he gets 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 viewers
Yep.
per video, maybe 100,000, maybe a couple of 100,000.
Yep.
And then I'd go back and say, guys, our Toronto Defiant channel gets like 18 viewers, okay? And this guy, okay, who we could have and should have hired or bought his
Yep.
channel,
Yeah.
okay? He's like kicking our ass. Like, what is going on here?
Yep.
Okay, and that is the magic of this industry. Okay,
Yep.
and you lean into that
Yep.
because it is very hard to just basically decide I'm going to do it and I'm going to be successful. Okay,
Yep.
you have to be doing it, and then you have to look at it. Who's doing it better than you are,
Yep.
and then you have to figure out a way to bring them on board. Your
I mean,
organization,
this is
your
a really interesting debate, right? Considering, like, your
Yeah.
biggest streamer, like the Spanish guy,
Yeah, Ibai. Yeah.
right? You know, he's essentially, he's essentially using your audiences, and he's growing his audience as well, right? And
For sure.
and it's how does that then play a part in monetizing for you guys as well, right? And that's like the same with a bunch of other streamers around the world. Like,
Yeah.
so the power of those streamers across the publisher set is a
Yeah.
very interesting debate.
And I think it hasn't been figured out completely yet. I think in the esports world, but I do think that what we are seeing, without a doubt, is that partnerships between influencers and esports organizations are more powerful
Yes.
than things being apart. And
Yes.
what we we have an interesting kind of approach to it, right? So in Spain, for example, I have a WhatsApp channel with our influencers over there, and these people are closer to our fans than any one of us are. Okay, so they know what the fans are saying.
Yep.
When I see a lot of Spanish on the chat here about this and that,
Yeah.
I get this first from our influencers, okay, because they see it on their chat and they get the stuff. And when we're talking about messaging or trying to figure it out, we often talk to them about it because they are connected to the fans in a closer way than we are. Even our players are practicing
Yep.
and kind of playing the game. These guys are streaming and hear from the audience right away.
Yep.
So what we try to do with all of our influencers is we make them a part of our team.
Yes.
So as I was saying, Sergio, Farah, or Revenant, or a few of the other people that we have out there, Connectro, beyond just eBuy, okay, we bring them in and we ask them for their input on player decisions, on how we're building the teams. Sometimes sponsor kind of discussions, in terms of how we're going to do that. And what we want to do is we want them to feel like the team is their team, okay? It's it's if they believe that it is their team and they're involved in building the team and they're co-streaming the team and they've got big audience kind of engagement from the co-streams, okay?
Yep.
And so they benefit from that audience, we benefit from their engagement, then I feel it's very difficult for them to basically say, hey, I'm not going to be with this team anymore, I'm going to go and sign a deal over there, right?
Yep.
They're intrinsically linked with us and our organization.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that I think is a very powerful, like we've gone from really kind of being mid-tier to one of the most watched organizations in the world because of our influencer kind of combination over there. The final thing I'll say is that the way that we look at esports is sponsors have to pay the costs, okay? And we want MTX in the game to be our profit, right? Yeah, well, they pay the cost because we deliver the audience,
Yes.
okay? And so they benefit, we benefit, but we have to have the audience to be able to deliver it. And the way that we deliver the audience is if I can send a message through our channels that we own, including our influencer channels that are contracted to us, if I can send a message to an eyeball who is subscribed to one of our channels without having to pay extra, okay, then I own that channel, okay? And so we've built that channel to over 100 million right now between Europe, Latin America, and North America, and that is an extremely powerful channel. If I can basically say, look, I've got connections with our teams, our partners, and our viewers, where I can send a message, your promotional message, and 100 million people can see it, that is extremely powerful. And then the MTX, which is kind of a new innovation, which is the skins that, we're basically more and more involved in. The bigger your fan base, the more engaged, the more they're connected with your influencers, the better your team does, and the more they love your players, the more skins they will buy.
Yes.
Wait, skins. Don't you got something going on with skins right now?
We do actually. So January 7th,
Okay.
the promotional thing.
Okay.
Toronto Ultra skins went on sale for Call of Duty and Call of Duty Warzone, Black Ops 6, January 7th. Go out and check out our skin pack.
7. Isn't that today?
It is January
days ago.
7th,
Yesterday.
2 days ago.
Oh.
I will say,
Yesterday.
because of a lot of these things that we were talking about, the Toronto Ultra skin was the best-selling skin in the world in Call of Duty team. Okay, and when we were looking at the statistics for 2024, whatever country you looked at, we were the best-selling skin, which is a combination of our audience, our fans, and the design. I think we're always very strong in Canada with the Toronto Ultra brand. Sales came out, like I said, 2 days ago.
How are you doing?
Next
Are we going to
month,
get some number or confidential now?
well, we don't know the numbers yet.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a lot more competition this year, I would say.
Why is
Last
that?
year, well, because the other teams have basically watched what we did, and they're going to do some of that too.
The old Nintendo principle. Okay.
Right.
So you had mentioned earlier about.
I will say, just as an aside, January 9th, Valorant capsules are on sale. So Movie Star Koi capsules. You guys can go and pick up some of those, available worldwide. Movie Star Koi was also one of the best-selling capsules for Valorant in 2024. Even though our team was not very good, we're working on it, okay? It was our first year in the game, okay? Our fans give us a lot of kind of grief over some of these things.
Amazing.
But look, if it's not for the engagement, like you cannot have engagement without grief, okay?
Yeah.
And we get a lot of grief at times, but we also get a lot of love and appreciation, and that just goes together. Like, like you have to have strong mental in this industry, okay? Like if you don't have strong mental in this industry, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Robbie, I'm going to pivot to you momentarily. Touching on what you had said earlier, Adam, about esport programs. I think it might be more useful, because you had mentioned TMU's strength in media production. I think it would be more useful if each school that had a discipline leveraged that discipline as it related to esports. What do I mean? If you're known for law in UFT, perhaps it might be a situation where you're saying, hey, we do esports law here. If you're known for production, media production, wouldn't it make sense to say, oh, I'm specializing in esports broadcasting, which is really just broadcasting?
I don't want the best esports lawyer. I want the best lawyer, okay? So you know, I mean,
so the lawyer one, I think I agree with you on the lawyer.
Okay, I accept.
But I think on the broadcast side, and the production side, I think, and like in-game and, you know, all of that, like I think there is a real talent there. There's a pool that we need to constantly tap into. on the creative side, on some of the in-game stuff is very, very important.
Yeah.
I think there, like if you knew like that the best in-game talent was coming from, Montreal or from, Arkansas, I don't know, wherever it was, but that was like the systemic hub for that particular group or cohort of staff.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting to be able to hire from those bases. And then, but the problem I have here is like, how do you influence that? How do the four of us here sitting around the table having this great chat, right? How do we make a freaking difference to the world so that that cohort of talent can actually shine its light through? And that I really struggle with. Like, I spend so much of my time trying to lobby with individuals in government and all the rest of it to try and make that happen. But it's not changing, right?
Yeah.
And I think the problem here is also there's still a stigma attached to esports and gaming. Parents still basically, I came in here laughing. I don't know if anyone's got their badge. You are a doctor, right? Yeah. On my badge, it said doctor. And I was like, Mom, I'm a doctor now, right? And she's like, I'm proud of you, son. You're not in esports any longer, right? There's something about that we've got to change, right? And it's our responsibility back to the world at large on that.
I think one way of changing things is for, as you were saying, Adam, earlier, you've got to be in it. You have to participate in some way. If there was a list of schools who claim to do esports, but also a list of people on the team that actually participate and the list of the games they play, watch, or anything, that would change the game immediately because there's so many people hiding. Second thing, over to you. We'll start off with you, Robbie. What are some of the key challenges you've seen in growing esports? We've talked about this idea of fans and then workers. Are there any other issues or challenges that you see?
Look, I think we touched upon it at the beginning, it's sustainability, but I think it's the business economics of this ecosystem, right? Adam called it a niche before, that's a fair point, right? We are a global ecosystem sitting within the global gaming market. The gaming market is worth somewhere around 200 billion, it's probably worth, let's be optimistic, it might be a $500 billion industry by 2030. Let's be optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Of that, esports might be 7 or 8 billion, right? Not even as big as the movie industry from a film production standpoint, from a film output perspective, right?
Yeah.
So sustainability around the esports ecosystem has been important, and I think the biggest challenge there is sales. I think commercial sales against sponsorship, for example, is something that's not underpinned by proper data points. When you're looking at your campaigns that you're doing, like, are you getting enough data points back to prove that those audiences are there? Are you getting, the proof that the bang for your buck is absolutely there? We need to do more.
Exactly.
Do you know what the global ad market's worth? $1 trillion.
It's the biggest market.
$1 trillion,
right? Yeah.
Right? How much of that is going to Google and Facebook?
Yeah, exactly.
600 billion. Right?
Yeah.
So, we're just not taking enough of the pie on that global market. And you look at the amount of money that's being spent in the show that we're here, we should be making way more money from that.
Yeah. I think that's changing. So first of all, validation is in terms of like, are you actually getting the eyeballs that you're paying for? Is I think it's a bigger issue in the traditional ad world. I mean, it's ripe with corruption and fake stuff, and there's like industries out there just to kind of make it look like you got more views when you're basically buying. I won't say a Google ad, but whatever kind of paid ad that you're basically paying for. I mean, okay, there's the numbers are inflated. We all know that. Okay, and I do have a background in ad tech as well, so I know how that industry works. I think AI and other things might kind of improve that, but the value of esports within the advertising sponsorship ecosystem is that for young people hate ads. Okay,
Yes.
Okay, they block them, they avoid them, they eliminate them, they make fun of them. Okay, they don't want to have anything to do with them. Okay. In esports, they engage with them. Okay, because when a company is supporting something that they are passionate about, okay? And I know the word authentic kind of gets overused, but it is an authentic connection between what they care about, the players and the influencers and the ecosystem that they love, and they understand that is how it is being funded. And I think it's a more valuable, this is I think one of the things that, we have to do a better job in esports. Like, we are not a CPM business. Like, the value of my eyeball is many, 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 many times more valuable than that. That's something that I think I think that's something that we're getting better at, okay? A good way of doing it, what we found, is that live events, and you guys are doing that, is a visceral kind of way for them to basically say, this is real. I get it. When we have a Call of Duty major in Toronto, or the championship, or we had our KoiCon in Madrid, we're going to do an LEC on the road. We're all about like the live events, and a big part of that live event is we bring all of our sponsors and our partners.
But my point is,
but when they see 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 fans screaming for our team, cheering for it, and not only screaming for the team and cheering for it, but knowing the game. They know when to cheer, they know when not to cheer. They see the age group, the demographic, they see the spend, and they see that that is the audience that they're engaged with. And when they take a look at the number, it's more real to them than something on X.
But the ad dollars are not paying for 2, 5, 10,000 people. They want to pay for a million people.
Yes.
No, they are paying for 1 million people. What I'm saying is that for us, the live event is validation. It is something that we spend. I don't try to make a lot of money on my live events, okay? I'd like to make a little bit of a profit on the live events, okay? But the margins are quite low on the live events, if they are positive at all, okay? And traditionally, our live events have lost money, okay? But the reason we do them is that it's a sales tool, okay? I bring partners there. We show them the fans. They talk to the people, and it becomes real to them. And when in their mind, okay, they can take the experience of these 5,000 people and then project it out to the million of people that are out there.
Okay, but then how do you sell your online audiences against that?
Well, look, we've got...
Because you've got your guy who's already taking your stream and he's got more people than you.
We've got... No, they partner with... Look, those are things... I think influencers and esports
the young guy you were talking about before.
Oh, that guy?
Yeah,
well, that guy's got his market. But the thing that guy doesn't have, though, is he doesn't have a partnerships team. He doesn't have the infrastructure. What sponsors, and maybe this is right up your alley, Alex, is that, what is very difficult for a corporate sponsor to do is to just basically engage with some dude who's got a big audience, okay? Are they safe? What if they say something? Okay.
Crazy,
And what we do is we professionalize that. Like in Canada, we've won multiple, sponsor of the year, like for our Toronto Ultras being the best brand for sponsors in Canada, okay? And that is valuable because we can do all of the servicing that the partner wants. We can provide them with influencers and partners and audience in a way that is safe. And when somebody says something online that is inappropriate, we can take action to make sure that it doesn't continue or to mitigate.
I think you said, what's the challenge, right? The challenge for me is...
I understand. I know what you're going to go for.
700 million people playing esports. I think that's the statistic that's being moved around.
Okay.
That's 10% of the world's population.
Yep.
The digital ad economy is $1 trillion. The digital ad economy, right? So we should be taking 10%. We're not.
Yeah.
We're not. We're nowhere near it.
That's potential, though. See, I don't look
100%.
at I look at that and I say, okay, so we can project out to when it's going to go there, and I think we
want to get there. I'm impatient.
Well, we're behind the curve, but look, we're not only in an industry. You and I are inventing this industry, right? And this is one of the things I tell our people, and I tell our investors, and I tell our partners, like, we are creating an industry here, and it hasn't been done before. And so we might make some wrong turns, but I also look at other people and think, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Because together we have to figure it out. And I think we're moving in the right direction, okay? I think that esports is better now than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think that we're on the path to sustainability. I think there has been exits from the industry, which is healthy, okay? And I think that makes the rest of us stronger. I think publishers today, and I would say the big ones being, Valve, Activision, and Riot. In the West, there's Tencent, and there's obviously the Asian games as well, which are very big as well, but we're not in that market right now. They understand esports better than they did, 5 years ago as well. And so I think we're in a very good position now to kind of focus our attention on delivering what matters, because I would put to you, 5 years ago, we were spending a lot of money delivering things that didn't matter, right? Because we were still trying to figure out what mattered. I think we know what matters now more. Right?
I'm going to take one question from the chat from our previous point of conversation from Jonathan. It's for both Adam and Robbie. Out of all the esports OAM and Blast operate in respectively, which do you think receives the best developer support in terms of supporting organizations in their competitive circuits with systems such as revenue share and in-game cosmetics, if that's even a thing?
That's like picking from my kind of children, right?
Oh,
So-
okay. You don't pick from children. Okay, got it. All right, I accept.
Look, look, I will
But
say,
they're all different. I mean, that's
I
the
would
all
say,
different.
I would
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
look, in our markets, the games that we're in, okay, it is in North America, okay. I think it's Call of Duty, okay. It's Activision, okay. We started up the Call of Duty League in 2019. We went through iterations and changes. Again, this is the same thing that I was talking about. We focused on things that maybe didn't matter as much, and I think now between us and Activision and the game studios, we understand more what matters, and we've put together a program and a system that I think is imminently viable and sustainable. And in fact, this year we're seeing teams enter Call of Duty. We've seen Gentlemates come in, for example, Team Falcon. So that's a healthy kind of ecosystem. I think it's hard to kind of not talk about the work that Riot has done.
I think the good thing is there's been an evolution.
Yes.
Right? And to your point earlier, right? There's been an evolution over the period of the last 5 years, and now publishers are leaning in more. They're providing that in-game. You were talking about MTX before.
Yeah.
They're providing that support. They're providing that infrastructure. They're standing out the way in some instances for operators to operate. There's been a sort of resetting of how these ecosystems work for now.
Yeah.
By the way, that could all change again in 3 or 4 years' time,
Yeah.
which is also okay, which is why I think we're bullish on the overall ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
Coming from the partner side, I think we have a very different view or a different objectives on how the esport industry goes. Because you guys are the front runners, you guys are on the top level of the traffic, creating all the clouds, creating all the noises. We're the one that are trying to convert those noises.
Yeah.
Because the conversion from your side coming from skin, but the thing with skin is it counts as in-game purchase. So it's some things like within the game itself. You do have merch.
Yeah.
That come as apparels, accessories, that could be from another sponsor brand or within yourself. Like you said, the offline events, the ticket sale, doesn't really generate that much money.
Yeah.
It barely cover up the profit model.
Yeah.
So that means as being the top level, like we said, the traffic funnel, right?
Yeah.
You guys being the top announcement side, for you guys to generate profit, a lot of profit are have to coming from the bottom ones, or have to coming from sponsorships. So on the top one, then, like we said, you really like, let's say, Apple Watch. Well, fuck, that was a bad example. Apple Watch, everyone knows about it. Damn. Let's say, okay.
Steam controller.
Oh, let's say that's the
Or the
Steam
Steam
controller,
Deck.
right? Yeah, exactly. So Chris have a Steam. That's still a very okay. Quick example. Let's say this shirt right here, right? I really like this shirt. I saw this shirt. I bought this shirt.
I'm glad you like it.
Danke. But bought it myself. But I didn't watch the announcement for this shirt. I didn't watch the top events for this shirt, but I bought it. That's because the constant repetitive type of promotion, the pop star that wears it, the store that I saw, the experiential, the touch, the feel, everything that I knows about it. Okay, now I'm gonna buy this shirt. But on esports, that's something that's missing right now.
Yeah.
So the reason why esports industry is so small, because it doesn't have all the sponsors in the back, because the sponsor cannot convert. Like a prime example I always tell a lot of people is last year when we were first started working together. You guys gave us what was it? That was Rocket League Major. I think that was London or something in June, May, for free. At the time, Robbie came over, maybe not Robbie, but Bloss came over and said, okay, like on a good courtesy, we're gonna give you this major for free. We're gonna place your chair on the stage, but we don't have enough time to do social media, no time for PR, no time for influencer, nothing. Only the chair on the stage. You know how much traffic that brought to our sites? 0. Very strange. We can track all the data. We can put out the Shopify like today. You can see in May during the competition
But
time,
the product placement didn't work in that instance.
0. Nothing. We have probably like
Good job
200.
you didn't pay for it then, isn't it?
I know, right? Fuck.
Yeah.
We have probably like 200 visitors inside the store. That's it. 200 visitors with a, let's say, a 1% conversion rate. I sell 2 chairs. There's nothing.
So you made money.
Okay, so first of all,
I made a little bit.
maybe one of the challenges of esports is that we're giving away stuff for free.
Yes, exactly.
But look, I think, Alex, I mean, I think you're a good example because you started up this company. Nobody knew Blacklyte.
Yes.
Like, even when you partnered with us,
Yep.
I'd never heard of Blacklyte.
Exactly.
Okay? And
Yeah.
I would say, you know, the exposure that you guys have got, I mean, you've gone deep into esports between us and the other teams and Blast that you sponsor.
Yep.
And so it is a very cost-effective way for you to get exposure to the brand and brand recognition.
Yeah.
Now, I will agree with you that converting that is I would argue it's probably not our job. It's probably more your job.
Definitely.
But it is. Look, our audience is younger and they don't have as much money. And what you wanted and what we try to kind of talk to partners with is. It is a cost-effective way for you to reach this audience in a way that they don't resent you and hate you. I mean, because that's kind of one of the things. And I think what we can do better, though, in esports is to help you convert into sales.
The influencer roster they were saying is very effective.
Yeah.
That's a very effective strategy by using the influencers with team, with events,
I think you need that combination between the live events, the influencers.
Definitely.
The influencers help to drive brand engagement and expose. All of that stuff basically has to come together. And look, like I said, I think we try to figure this out with one of our other partners. I'm not going to say the name again. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to not say. But we did at our last major in Toronto, and I'm going to guess the number here, but I think it's what I remember. But they got like 20,000 leads. Okay.
Yeah.
From the major in terms of people there and people that they were being referred to, okay? And for them, that was their single best kind of night for leads of any event that they did in that market. And so we did something for them particularly to help to drive that because that's what they were looking for. And I think we need to basically do that more.
Exactly.
That's the biggest complaint that we get.
This
is really good, but everybody knows me. If you're a big bank, right? But sometimes we talk to the banks and they say, this is really good, but everybody knows us. There's only 5 banks in Canada. There's only 5 or 6 banks in Spain, okay, or in Europe, okay? Everybody knows me. So how do I convert, my sponsorship into young people opening up accounts, right? And I will say what we've done in the past that was not successful is having seminars where some investment advisor would come and talk to our players about investing strategies.
Exactly.
Our audience does not want to watch that.
Exactly.
That didn't happen live on
I
Twitch,
didn't know that
did it?
happened.
That was years ago.
Didn't happen.
It's interesting because that point
don't
goes
wanna
back to
watch
my
that.
other point earlier, right? Is and I go back to storytelling, right? I just think the way that you deliver that ad campaign is the most important part of it, right?
Yes.
How you deliver that authentically to the audiences. Otherwise, what happens? They just go and turn on Google and they spend their dollars on
that's
Google
what I was
going to
say. Because Robbie was asking.
He's going to go and spend his money with Google.
Yes.
Did you really
Robbie
do that
was even
seminar?
asking, how do you track that, right? How do you prove that? Because let's say, for example, on Google, it's shit. Okay, I got a 3 to 4 ROIs. Every dollar that I spend, I get $3 to $4 back. That's a guarantee.
Yeah.
So, but for esport events, it's very hard to track. That's one thing. Like, let's say, for example, there's influencer promotional code, we can say, okay, it's Adam22, then we get a 22% off on my products or something. Okay, that is one way to track, but it's very hard to track the actual conversion. Like so-called endorsement is almost similar to the sites. For example, those review sites, PR articles.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very hard to track them. You don't know which one actually brings the sales because they're just browsing, they saw it, and they come to your website, they trust you, they bought it. So that's one thing, because esports is so new, it's such a new industry, it's such a new format. Everyone just testing now. Like, we'll put in some money, we'll sponsor 2 events, let's see how it works. But the thing is, you need the 5 impressions to get someone to trust you. But that's not one event, that's not one campaign.
I think the key there for me is getting the brands who are sponsors to communicate better with our partnerships teams on the core mechanisms for conversions.
Yes.
If we understand from the out exactly how you guys are tracking your funnel, then we can build the campaign and the integration much, much better.
Definitely.
Because otherwise, you're basically like speaking 2 different languages. You got one guy speaking in French, other guy speaking in German, and then you end up with
If you put Blacklyte chair and cup noodles together, I don't think they convert the same people.
Not gonna work, right?
But you put it right beside the same booth, but it doesn't convert. So it have to be a different type of strategy for different brands. But that takes a lot of time for you guys, because now it's put on pressure for you to say, okay, now do I need that partnership? Like, what is their job responsibility now?
We have to really understand your mechanisms, your conversion mechanisms, and how your metrics are built.
Exactly.
I'll go back to data, because I think that's what we're missing. But that was your point from earlier.
Data data is hard. look, somebody might not want to buy a chair today, and they
Yep.
might buy a chair like in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And they would never consider you because they would never have heard of you. And
Yep.
so at that point, like I think it's kind of more organic and long term. But
Yep.
but look, how. I gave you an example of kind of doing investment seminars that didn't work. As our audience is just going to flip the channel because they don't care, okay?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
there's a way to do that, and that was not a good example. But when we, for our League of Legends team, we had, a rookie team. It wasn't expected to do very well, and near the end of the year, we had a great run and we qualified for the World Championship. And before we qualified for the World Championship, we signed a new sponsor, Pepsi, okay? And Pepsi signed on to be our lead sponsor, for the final split up until as long as we lasted in 2024, okay? So it could have ended up being just a few games, okay? Or it could have ended up being all the way into Worlds, okay? And we put their big, beautiful Pepsi logo in the front. It was Pepsi Spain, okay? And we ended up making a remarkable run to Worlds, okay? And you couldn't miss that kind of positioning, okay? And Pepsi came back to us, not just Pepsi kind of in Spain, but Pepsi headquarters in the US came back and basically said, they were seeing the mentions and the social media stuff, and they were saying, what is happening here? Something is happening here in terms of positive momentum, because our fans were so positively inclined to Pepsi, okay, because of their support, and then the storytelling of, they came in, they took a risk in terms of paying us a sponsorship fee for as long as we last, and then we ended up lasting into World Championship and making it to Worlds, and there was just a lot of appreciation. We kind of created a story, and a bit of a risk from their part, and then when it paid off, the fans really paid off as well. And so again, I think we're getting better at understanding how our audience reacts to things, okay, and then leaning into that rather than trying to change them and having them be something else, okay?
Love it. So
maybe we can do that with Blacklyte for our kind of run for Worlds this year.
Exactly. We'll figure something out.
absolutely should. We're going to move on to our final question. But the joke that you made about being a doctor at the beginning is why numbers are always in my head. Okay, you're getting some love from David is Ownage from Toronto Ultra. Great org. There you go. People hate ads until they watch a really good ad. But the final question is, can we please have your individual visions and hopes for the future of esports? Be as selfish as possible in this response, projecting sort of willing it forward, if you will. Because as you mentioned in all the results today, or the conversation today, you're talking about this grassroots approach. We're trying, but we're still able to fail, iterate, and keep moving forward. It keeps growing. That Pepsi example is fantastic because it was a groundswell of support from both external as well as community, which I'm sure bled into the bravado of the team to make it all the way to world. It absolutely did, that energy, that groundswell. So, Vision, go ahead.
I got 2.
All right.
Oh,
The Super Bowl and technology.
All right.
Okay. What excited me when I came into this space 6 years ago was wow, this could be the Super Bowl of esports. It should be, right? It should be.
Yeah.
And I think we're on our way. We're on a nice journey. We're going to get there, right? But we're not there yet. I want the hype, the entertainment, the fanfare, the whole. I want when you look at the global press that circulates in the North American press, there's not enough focus, there's not enough energy dedicated to esports and gaming, and it should be, right? It's much more about NFL and NBA and all the rest of it, right? And that happens across the globe, right? So that, for me, is a holy grail. I think there's the Esports World Cup now that exists, which is fantastic. There's some really good stuff in and around there, right? The second part for me that I'm really excited about in the future is how that viewing experience can change, right? And so the streaming experience has evolved, but our Twitch experience hasn't really evolved, right? So I'm really excited about what that might look like, about how the 4 of us might sit down and watch a show, might watch your teams play, right? And what that looks like and how we can integrate with that experience and interact with that experience. You were talking about the lessons that you can learn from League of Legends and stuff. I just think you can be taking so much more out of that stream and lessons out of that.
Oh.
That, for me, is fundamental.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 things.
Love it. Adam, and then
Yeah.
the GOAT.
Look, I think, and I don't say this in terms of aspiration. I think it's going to happen. Like esports is the future of sports in one way or another. And I'm not going to say which games because the games will change. Okay.
Yeah.
But our average audience is in their early 20s, and in 10 years, I think they'll still be fans. Okay, and I think the new fans will come up. Okay, and in 20 years, I think they'll still be fans. When you lock in, and as an older person here, my favorite bands are still the ones from when I was in my 20s. Okay,
amazing.
Like what you get into in your 20s, favorite books, favorite music, favorite movies, that locks in forever. And so we're locking in more and more of those people, and I think they're going to stay with us for the long term. So, what we see right now is you see, like, for example, basketball viewership is declining, and that's a bit of a challenge. And you see the other sports out there, their fans are 20 some odd years older than our average fans. And every year they're getting older, okay? And those guys are stuck in the traditional world, okay? Cable was paying a lot of their stuff. When we see, Netflix and some of these other guys starting to move in, that will never replace the money that came from the cable companies, which are going away. We saw a lot of them go out of business in California, a few years ago, and that ecosystem kind of had a very hard time, okay? So that they're stuck in the old methods, cable-driven, proprietary technologies, these huge contracts, aging fan base, and what we are doing in esports is we're figuring it out, okay, first. We're in here first. We're the ones dealing with the influencers. Look, we have Montreal Canadiens, for example, are shareholders of ours, right? Which is a big hockey team, okay? We've got hockey players that are shareholders of ours. We've got Gerard Piqué, who's a footballer and well-known, obviously. He's on our board of directors. Like, we are connected to the traditional sports world, but what we are doing is figuring it out first, and I think we will figure it out first, and then these guys are going to find that they may be where Blockbuster and some of the other kind of aging, like they are big until they're not, okay? And we're on the other side. And so, it's not easy when you're figuring it out, and it's hard. But if you're Apple and you're paying billions of dollars for Major League Soccer instead of League of Legends, I think you're probably investing it in the wrong place.
Yes, definitely.
All right, Alex, take us home.
All right. Like I always said, I'm just enjoying the journey right now. We're on the very early stage of how esport or gaming develop. We're on the urge where technology has been growing rapidly. We're changing all the hardwares. All the visuals are getting better every single day. And the stigmatization, the bad side of the esports gradually fade away. And the people who's been growing up playing game are getting older, having kids. So that means the whole industry just only is going to get more and more mature, which means every single thing that's surrounded by it, the monetization, the education, the job, the everything will just get better every single day. I'm just glad I'm here to watch the whole journey.
Yeah, I love that. I would say that the esports industry might be on par with the video games industry. And what do I mean? At the beginning, in the early 70s, nobody knew what they were building. They were just building, right? We didn't know that from Pong we were going to have this. And as you're saying, you're there first building. I agree with that. And with that is all this history of what needs to be. Bumps, all of these things, the resurgent. And I'm like excited like you because I think we're inside of a black and white photo for esports right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's going to evolve. And
Amen.
it's evolving, So, with that, Adam, Alex, I'm trying to mess with the cameraman now. Robbie. They're doing it. Look. There we go. Alex.
Back at Alex.
We want to thank you so much for joining us today here at CES live in Vegas at the Blacklyte booth 2025. We had a great time. Make sure you follow. Hey, where can everybody get at you? Let's go, Adam.
I'm just looking at the chat there. Just really quickly to our fans on Counter-Strike. Look, obviously we can hear you in terms of our pause there. As I've been saying on X, we've got a lot of options on the table. We're going to figure it out, and I think we're going to put a plan together that make sense for our community. This is a community-based organization, and we listen to you. I put out a post on X earlier today asking for your ideas. If you've got ideas for Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike is a tough game to be in. It's one of the biggest and best games, as Robbie here knows, but it is probably the most difficult ecosystem to figure out. So we may be pausing for 25, not 100% sure on that yet, but we may be pausing for 25 so that we can get our bearings and figure it out, and then we'll come back. You can reach me. Best way to reach me is on X, @Grazen, Grazen. Follow me there. Follow Toronto Ultra. Follow @MovieStarKoi. And I'm always kind of lurking and following and seeing what you guys are saying.
Robbie, how can we contact you? Get in
Well,
touch.
I'm going to spend some time after this trying to persuade Adam that he can come back into CS. It's all going to be rosy. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of output for 25. It's going to be amazing. Robbie Dueck on Twitter and LinkedIn is also fantastic. I'm getting inbound CVs through there. Actually, some of the most amazing leads I've ever had have come through LinkedIn as well. So great places to go.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, folks, for your time, your energy, your comments. And we will see you tomorrow live on the show floor and here at the Blacklyte booth at CES 2025.
All right.
Oh,
All right.
take a piss.
Don't stop the body rock. Don't stop the body rock.
You find me with the hardest words, punch my chest till it hurts, picking up the pieces that keep falling apart. When did you turn your head, erase me, searching for my heart in the debris? I've lost myself since you left me. I've lost myself. Take I'm spinning and everything is confusing. I can't seem to slow my mind down. Is it you, is it me, is it us, is it lust, is it trust, is it just cause I can't figure it out? When did you turn your head, erase me, searching for my heart in the debris? I've lost myself since you left me. I've lost myself.